question of which defense equipment the Philippines needs most has become urgent as tensions in the West Philippine Sea intensify. With limited resources and a rapidly expanding threat environment, Manila must prioritize spending on systems that deliver maximum deterrence for every peso. The strategic sequence is clear. First, strengthen maritime domain awareness and coastal defense through patrol vessels, drones, maritime patrol aircraft, and modern C4 ISR networks. Second, build a credible anti-access/area denial A2AD shield with shore-based anti-ship missiles and integrated air defenses. And third, expand air power with multi-role fighters and advanced surveillance aircraft, while developing long-term capabilities such as submarines, anti-submarine warfare, cyber defense, logistics, and a domestic defense industry. This layered approach reflects the Philippines' geography, budget constraints, and the real-world lessons of 2024 to 2025, where gray zone pressure from China exposed the gaps in surveillance, deterrence, and rapid response. For the Philippines, defense modernization is not just a shopping list. It is a sequencing problem dictated by geography and threat environment. As an archipelago of more than 7,000 islands, the country's territory is maritime in nature, meaning any credible defense must begin with the ability to see, monitor, and control activity at sea. Unlike continental states that can prioritize armor or ground firepower, the Philippines must first secure its vast maritime spaces, choke points, and coastal approaches. Without persistent surveillance and rapid response capacity across the West Philippine Sea, even the most advanced weapons would be blind, reactive, and strategically ineffective. In short, maritime domain awareness and coastal defense form the base layer upon which every other defense investment must rest. That strategic logic has been reinforced by the tempo of events on the water. Throughout 2024 and 2025, Scarborough Shoal, Second Thomas Shoal, and nearby features became flashpoints where the Philippines faced intensified pressure from China's Coast Guard and maritime militia. These were not isolated incidents. They were part of a coordinated pattern of maritime saturation, where China deployed multiple vessels to overwhelm Philippine presence, challenge patrols, and enforce de facto control. At Scarborough in particular, Beijing escalated from shadowing and blocking maneuvers to the placement of buoys, barriers, and persistent patrol rotations, creating facts on the water while denying Filipino fisherfolk access. Each confrontation exposed the same operational gap. Without round-the-clock surveillance and enough holes in the water, the Philippines cannot contest occupation or prevent gradual encroachment. Meanwhile, China has paired its maritime muscle with legal and diplomatic maneuvers, insisting on historic claims under its 9-line narrative, even after the 2016 arbitral ruling rejected them. This combination, legal pressure above the surface and gray zone coercion at sea, aims to box Manila into a corner where inaction becomes acquiescence. But the Philippines has not stood alone. The same period saw a surge in allied exercises with the United States, Japan, and Australia, including joint patrols and coordinated drills near contested features. These activities highlight a growing regional recognition. The Philippines sits at the front line of Indo-Pacific security, and its ability to maintain awareness and resilience at sea is central to the wider balance of power. This is why sequencing matters. Before the Philippines talks about submarines, long-range bombers, or high-end strike systems, it must first build the eyes, ears, and coastal defenses that allow it to actually safeguard its waters. Patrol vessels, radar networks, UAV surveillance, maritime patrol aircraft, and command and control systems are not secondary. They are the foundation. Without them, every other capability risks becoming symbolic rather than strategic. The Scarborough deployments and buoy incidents of late 2025 made that reality unmistakable. If you cannot see the threat, document it, and respond early, you have already lost the initiative. The Philippines' modernization priorities must be sequenced according to urgency, affordability, and deterrent impact. At the top of the list is Maritime Domain Awareness, MDA, and C4 ISR, which forms the backbone of national defense. This includes a mix of persistent maritime patrol aircraft, MPA, long-endurance UAVs, coastal radar stations, AIS networks, satellites or hosted sensors, and integrated command and control systems. The logic is simple. You cannot defend what you cannot see. MDA provides the operational picture needed to cue interceptors, direct patrol assets, and document incursions for diplomatic and legal action. It also maximizes limited platforms, allowing a handful of ships to cover a wide maritime space. Recent acquisitions, such as the ATR-72 MPA, highlighted by Defense Security Asia, have already expanded the PAF's surveillance reach. The Philippines should pursue a measurable target, at least 70% daytime coverage of its EEZ within 5 years, a baseline standard for credible maritime defense. Second in priority is the expansion of offshore patrol vessels, corvettes, frigates, and a modernized Coast Guard. This basket is about presence with endurance. Modern OPVs and corvettes equipped with capable sensors, UAV support, and modular payloads allow the Navy and the Coast Guard to protect fishermen, enforce maritime law, and counter gray zone intrusions without immediately escalating to military confrontation. This presence-based deterrence is especially important in hotspots like Scarborough and 2nd Thomas Shoal. The ongoing frigate and corvette program with Hyundai Heavy Industries, HHI, with deliveries from 2025 to 2029, as reported by Naval News, shows the Philippines is on a realistic path. More PCG hulls, paired with drones, will ensure that China cannot maintain unchecked daily patrol superiority in contested waters. Third is a robust anti-ship and coastal defense system, particularly mobile truck-mounted missile batteries, coastal radars, and targeting networks. These systems provide the Philippines with asymmetric, cost-effective sea denial. Instead of trying to match China ship for ship, Manila can make any hostile approach toward its coastline prohibitively costly. This layer is tightly linked with MDA and C4ISR, since accurate targeting depends on reliable surveillance. A credible coastal defense posture complicates Chinese planning and forces Beijing to factor in missile risk even during gray zone operations. Fourth, the Philippines must build air defense and strike capability through modern multi-role fighter aircraft armed with advanced air-to-air missiles and supported by localized self-defense surface-to-air missile SAM coverage. Air power is essential not only for sovereignty and deterrence, but also for protecting naval and Coast Guard forces operating at sea. The follow-on purchase of 12 additional F-A-50 aircraft in 2025, reported by Reuters, is a step in the right direction. Over time, a mix of F-A-50 plus F-16 class fighters and integrated air defenses will allow the Philippines to contest its airspace instead of ceding it by default. Fifth, Manila needs stronger maritime patrol aircraft and anti-submarine warfare capability. As China expands its submarine fleet in the Indo-Pacific, early detection becomes a critical requirement. Additional ATR-72 MPAS, ASW sensors such as sonobuoys and dipping sonars, and doctrinal investment in ASW tactics are essential. This will form the underwater equivalent of MDA, enabling the Philippines to detect and track subsurface threats before they can operate freely in Philippine waters. Sixth is the submarine capability, which remains a powerful but long-term and conditional goal. Diesel-electric submarines with AIP would significantly enhance deterrence, but they are expensive to procure, sustain, and crew. Submarines should only come after the foundational layers, MDA, coastal defense, ASW, and air power, are mature. A phased roadmap combined with logistics and training pipelines will prevent submarines from becoming high-cost symbols without strategic utility. Alongside these layers are cross-cutting priorities, starting with cyber, electronic warfare, and space-based command and control resilience. As Business World has reported, Secretary Teodoro repeatedly stresses the need to counter hybrid and asymmetric threats. A modern defense ecosystem must be able to fight in the electromagnetic and information spectrum, not just at sea or in the air. Finally, the foundation of everything is logistics, munition stockpiles, sustainment, and local maintenance capacity. New platforms are meaningless if they sit idle for lack of spare parts, trained technicians, or dry dock capacity. Investment in sustainment and partnerships with local industry ensures the AFP can fight not only on day 1, but on day 30, day 300, and beyond. The Philippines' defense modernization has finally gained measurable traction. And the most concrete indicator of this shift is the 2025 national defense budget, which climbed to roughly 258 to 272 billion pesos, 4.6 to 5.2 billion dollars. This represents one of the sharpest year-on-year jumps in AFP funding in over a decade, signifying a decisive turn away from the old paradigm of underinvestment and internal security focus. Instead, Manila is now openly resourcing an external defense posture aimed at countering Chinese pressure in the West Philippine Sea. This budget growth is not just about purchasing hardware. It is about transforming the AFP from a reactive force into one capable of deterrence, sustained presence, and domain awareness. With rising regional tensions, this annual allocation now serves as the financial backbone supporting naval expansion, air power development, radar systems, and maritime surveillance networks. A closer look at how that money is distributed reveals the doctrinal shift underway. Defense News reporting shows that in 2025, the Army received about 138.2 billion pesos, while the Air Force and Navy received roughly 51.6 billion pesos and 51 billion pesos respectively. Though the Army still holds the largest share because of ongoing domestic commitments, the most important takeaway is that air and maritime allocations are now, for the first time in years, growing aggressively and proportionally. This is crucial for an archipelagic nation. Control of the air and sea, not the hinterlands, determines who controls the Philippine EEZ. The budget split is therefore more than accounting. It is an institutional acknowledgement that sea control, MDA, and credible air cover are now core national priorities. Real capability growth is already visible in the water. The Philippine Navy is in the middle of its largest surface combatant expansion in modern history, with new frigates, corvettes, and OPVs in the pipeline, including the commissioning of the guided missile frigate BRP Miguel Malvar in 2025, as reported by Naval News. This milestone matters for two reasons. First, guided missile ships allow the PN to finally project deterrence, not just constabulary presence. Second, a fleet built around missile-capable surface combatants means the Philippines will soon be able to sustain naval presence at sea for longer periods, rather than relying on a handful of legacy platforms. This directly addresses the vulnerability exposed in near-daily confrontations with China, where presence and endurance decide who controls the narrative and the waters. Air power is moving in parallel. Manila's agreement with South Korea's KAI for 12 new Fa-50 fighter jets, valued at around $700 to $713 million, marks a major step toward building a credible defensive and interdiction air fleet. These aircraft improve maritime patrol escort capability, enhance the Philippines' ability to contest airspace, and provide standoff strike options when paired with modern munitions. For a country that has historically lacked air deterrence, the Fa-50 expansion is a signal that the AFP intends to protect its skies and support naval operations, rather than leaving them exposed. Crucially, the Philippines is not modernizing in isolation. In 2024, U.S. lawmakers introduced a bipartisan proposal to provide $2.5 billion in defense support for Manila over several years.
There's a long line of countries in the past who have attempted to test U.S. resolve. We are resolved at this time, at this moment, to work with our partners to reestablish the warrior ethos, to rebuild our military and reestablish deterrence, and come alongside our allies and partners, first and foremost, in this region.
This potential funding, aimed at coastal defense, MDA, maritime enforcement, and capacity building, shows that the country's modernization efforts are backed by great power support, further strengthening deterrence. When combined with EDCA expansion, massive Balikatan exercises, and trilateral/joint patrols, the Philippines' defense posture is no longer purely national. It is embedded in an allied framework that magnifies Manila's limited resources. Recent events in the West Philippine Sea have shown clearly and repeatedly why the Philippines' top defense priorities must begin with surveillance, presence, and rapid response capability. In October 2025 at Scarborough Shoal, China deployed new buoys, maritime security personnel, and even fighter jets while Philippine vessels and aircraft were active in the area. By laying physical markers and maintaining constant ship presence, Beijing again demonstrated how quickly it can escalate and establish facts on the water. This incident proved that without persistent maritime patrol aircraft, UAV coverage, AIS tracking, and continuous PCG presence, Manila will always be reacting late, arriving only after China has reshaped the situation. At the same time, the Philippines has begun to feel tangible improvements in naval capability. The commissioning of the BRP Miguel Malvar FFG-06 in 2025, built by HD Hyundai Heavy Industries, marked a major leap forward for the Philippine Navy, giving it longer range and modern sensors to patrol and protect the EEZ. This new generation of frigates and corvettes represents a shift away from legacy platforms and towards ships that can deter, not merely observe, foreign coercion. In the air domain, Manila has moved just as deliberately. The June 2025 agreement with Korea Aerospace Industries, KAI, worth roughly $700 to $713 million for 12 new FA-50 aircraft, show that the Philippine Air Force can quickly recapitalize its fighter fleet and plug immediate air defense gaps. These light multi-role fighters are an interim but essential step while the country prepares for heavier, longer-range platforms in the future. Finally, the Philippine Coast Guard's UAV expansion and the Air Force's ATR-72 MPA acquisitions underscore a critical modernization trend, pairing large flagship platforms with low-cost, high-coverage sensors that dramatically multiply maritime awareness. Drones and MPAs allow the Philippines to monitor its waters continuously, document harassment, and queue Navy or PCG vessels faster, something that is vital in a battle space where China relies on tempo and surprise. Together, these cases, Scarborough's escalation, the Navy's new frigates, the FA-50 fighter expansion, and the UAV/MPA surveillance push, prove the same strategic point. The Philippines wins time, space, and legitimacy when it can see early, patrol consistently, and respond credibly. Without these layered capabilities, Beijing's gray zone tactics will always outrun Manila's reactions. With them, the Philippines finally gains the leverage needed to contest control, uphold the 2016 ruling, and protect its EEZ in real time, not after the fact. In the immediate term, over roughly the next 0 to 3 years, the Philippines should lock in the capabilities that deliver the highest return per peso for maritime awareness, presence, and rapid response. That begins with additional maritime patrol aircraft and maritime drones of the ATR-72 class, paired with long-endurance UAVs, because persistent eyes over the West Philippine Sea are the single biggest force multiplier for a country with limited hulls and flight hours. Added to this, Manila needs between 8 and 12 modern offshore patrol vessels or large Coast Guard cutters and patrol corvettes with decent endurance, modern sensors, UAV launch recovery options, and modular mission spaces that can accept bolt-on missile or anti-submarine warfare ASW kits as funding allows. The third immediate pillar is mobile coastal anti-ship missile batteries, truck or trailer-mounted sea skimmers networked to a modern targeting picture, which provide asymmetric sea denial at a fraction of the cost of blue water surface combatants. These shooters must be fused into a national coastal radar network, complemented by commercial satellite data buys and integrated command and control, so that surveillance feeds and firing solutions live on the same timeline. Finally, none of this works without sustainment. Multi-year support contracts, spare parts pipelines, and joint logistics hubs at Clark and Subic, and selected southern nodes, should be funded up front so new fleets don't sit pierside for lack of maintenance capacity. With the sensing grid, presence patrols, and coastal missiles in place, the Philippines can mature into a more capable sea control force. That means fully crewed and commissioned frigates with credible anti-submarine warfare suites, HHI/Horizon variants with towed arrays, hull sonars, and organic help facilities, arriving on schedule and supported by trained specialists. In parallel, the fighter fleet must expand beyond today's baseline with follow-on FA-50s, or FA-50+, upgrades to AESA radar and modern air-to-air missiles, and the training and munitions stockpiles to make quick reaction alerts meaningful over the West Philippine Sea. To tie the water column together, Manila should introduce deployable ASW sensors and a limited number of ASW helicopters, building the doctrine and crews to hold adversary submarines at risk near key straits and choke points. By the end of this phase, the operational picture should be continuous, the response loop compressed, and the Navy and Air Force able to fight together rather than in parallel. Only after the foundations, MDA, coastal denial, air cover, ASW basics, and sustainment are reliably in place should the Philippines consider a small fleet of diesel-electric submarines, AIP if affordable. Submarines are potent for deterrence and sea denial, but their life cycle costs, training demands, and doctrine requirements are punishing. A phased approach with realistic availability targets and industrial partnerships is essential. In the same time frame, Manila should prioritize building an indigenous maintenance and munitions industrial base, local MRO for airframes and sensors, dockyard capacity for hull work and combat system integration, and licensed assembly or co-production of selected munitions. This industrial layer is what turns short bursts of capability into enduring capability. The immediate basket is deliberately chosen because it buys the most effect for the least money. MDA upgrades, ATR-72 type MPAs, maritime drones, ground stations, and C2 generally fall in the tens to low hundreds of millions of US dollars per project or per aircraft and can be staged across fiscal years. By contrast, surface combatants scale widely, roughly 50 million US dollars for simpler OPVs, climbing into the 300 to 600 million US dollar range for well-equipped corvettes and frigates with modern sensors and missile fits. So, bundling buys and insisting on training, spares, and tech refresh options will matter more than chasing the shiniest hull. Fighter tranches are similarly lumpy. The 12 aircraft FA-50 package, around 700 million US dollars, is a realistic yardstick. But the total program cost turns on sustainment, munitions, simulators, and flight hour funding. The sequencing here is designed to fit a defense top line that's growing but still constrained. By sensing and presence first, then layer on the expensive shooters once the picture is coherent and the sustainment is funded. In the first half year, finalize purchase lists for MPAs and drones. Commit funds for 2 to 4 additional ATR-72 type platforms, and scale UAV operations with an eye to 24/7 coverage of priority boxes. Use this window to secure allied financing and grant options, foreign military financing/sales, export credits, and training packages to ease early cash burdens. From 6 to 24 months, begin OPV corvette deliveries while standing up integrated coastal radar and C2 nodes at priority sites, Luzon's northern approaches, Palawan's west coast, and selected Visayas stations, so the sensing grid and patrol routes mature together. Between 24 and 48 months, field mobile anti-ship missile batteries and complete pilot and MPA crew pipelines. At the same time, build the ammunition and spare parts stockpiles that make these units credible. From 48 to 84 months, commission ASW-capable frigates, operationalize initial ASW helicopters and sensor fields, and complete a sober feasibility review for submarines with clear requirements, training paths, and through-life cost projections. Throughout, track progress with hard metrics, percentage of the EEZ under near real-time surveillance, days at sea for PCG and PN in contested zones, end-to-end targeting cycle time for coastal missiles, and platform maintenance readiness rates. Exercises like Balakatan, Sama-Sama, and Alan are not photo ops. They are the fastest way to compress learning curves and harden tactics against a thinking adversary. Manila should stand up specialist schools for ASW operations, MPA mission crews, coastal missile batteries, and cyber EW operators, using allied syllabi and embedded advisors to accelerate standards. Foreign military financing and technical assistance missions should be aimed not just at purchases, but at sustainment skills, avionics troubleshooting, engine and radar maintenance, depot-level hull work, systems integration, and configuration management. Interoperability at the message format, data link, and C2 level will matter as much as any single platform purchase. The most obvious risk is overbuying high-end platforms, submarines or large destroyers, without funding the tail that keeps them available. The antidote is disciplined, modular procurement, phased entry into service, and legally ring-fenced sustainment lines so spares and training can't be rated in tight budget years. A second risk is China's use of legal and constabulary tools, nature reserve designations, buoy fields, and blockade-style Coast Guard patrols to deny access without crossing the threshold of armed conflict. The counter is persistent civilian presence, PCG plus fishery support vessels. Relentless documentation, AIS, video, ISR, and pre-coordinated diplomatic amplification with allies, so that each coercive move carries reputational and political cost. Set and publish a handful of outcome metrics so strategy doesn't drift. Track the share of the EEZ under near real-time surveillance and aim above 70% daytime coverage in 5 years, with nighttime improvement driven by sensors and IR payloads. Count annual days at sea by PCG and PN inside contested boxes and drive those figures steadily upward. Time the response to intrusions in priority zones with a hard target of under 6 hours from detection to on-scene presence. Watch platform availability, the boring but vital mission-capable percentages for ships and aircraft, and tie commander evaluations to readiness, not just acquisition announcements. Finally, solicit and record changes in harassment patterns reported by local fishermen. If their incident reports decline while catches recover, deterrence is working where it matters. Prioritize maritime domain awareness and resilient coastal defense. Invest first in MPAs, long-endurance UAVs, coastal radars, and OPVs to secure presence and protect fishermen. Then layer mobile anti-ship systems and modern fighters. Sustainment, crew training, and allied finance mechanisms must be ring-fenced to avoid shiny object spending that fails operationally. This sequence fits both the archipelagic geography and the fiscal realities of the 2025 defense budget increase. And it is the quickest path to credible deterrence in the West Philippine Sea. For budget levels and branch allocations, recent Defense News and GovCon exec ABN reporting remain the best quick references. For fighter acquisitions, Reuters coverage of the June 2025 FA-50 deal provides reliable figures and timelines. On surface fleet programs, including HHI frigates, corvettes, and the 2025 commissioning of BRP Miguel Malvar, use Naval News, and where appropriate, Wikipedia for fast lookups cross-checked against primary releases. For threat context at Scarborough Shoal and recent nature reserve claims, USNI News, the Associated Press, and regional reporting like SCMP capture October to September 2025 developments. Finally, for Coast Guard UAV growth and incremental MPA additions, the Philippine News Agency and official PCG releases provide the most current domestic updates.
If you like the video, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel for deep analysis of contemporary issues.